Today, it is with heavy heart that I announce the passing of a member of the Massacre Matinee. In the background of a lot of our videos, you could always hear a jingling bell. I've got 3 cats. I had 3 cats. Gypsy passed on Wednesday evening. We're not sure what happened, but I wanted to take a moment of silence at the start of this episode to just appreciate your fur babies, because you never know how long they're going to be there. Welcome back to Matinee, Kate.
Welcome back.
It's my turn.
It's your turn.
So, if you're following us on social media, you would know that today's episode is about the execution of Joseph Wood. I actually, on my notes, I called this Debbie's Revenge. So, quick background and quick disclaimer. There's not a whole lot of info on the murders themselves.
Yeah.
There's a lot more info on the execution. So, quick little background on what happened that got this execution happening. So, Joseph Wood was born in Texas, 1958. After 6 years in the Air Force, he walked away from the military because he was having some real bad alcoholism and mental health problems.
Yeah.
They were believed to have been amplified due to a series of head injuries that were caused by multiple car accidents that he'd been in. And in 1989, he was living with Deborah Dietz. I believe it's Dietz, D-I-E-T-Z.
Yeah.
They'd been together for 5 years, but he was, like, super abusive the whole way through kind of thing. She was the sole provider for the household, too. So she'd go out and work all the time, and he'd sit at home, not do a whole lot, and then beat the shit out of her when he got home, because why not? He was
I'm bored.
Raging alcoholic, minimal function kind of thing. And when Debbie finally found the courage to walk away from him and be like, okay, I don't need to live this life, he started stalking her.
No, Jesus.
Yeah. So on August 7th of 1989, Woods was, like, super pissed off because she wasn't answering his phone calls. She was ignoring him. And she worked at an auto body shop with her father.
Okay.
It was the Dietz family shop. So Wood went there where they were both working, and her father's name was Eugene. And when Wood showed up, Eugene was on the phone, so he just kind of stood there and patiently, calmly waited for him to get off the phone kind of thing, which totally normal. Didn't raise any alarm bells until Eugene hung up the phone, and he pulled a revolver out of his pocket, .38 revolver, and Wood shot her father, Eugene, in the chest.
Okay.
So it killed him instantly, thankfully.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is he was dead. And after a brief struggle with Eugene's brother, because he was also there, Wood was able to get away from him and find Debbie, and he also shot her. He shot her twice, once in the abdomen and then once in the chest. It was the second shot that did end up killing her.
The abdomen and the chest shots, those ones are really hard to survive.
Yeah. And there was a lot of blood, by all accounts, from the family. So, after the killing, he fled the building, and he was approached by 2 police officers, and they were just kind of like, hey, what's going on? Like, you need to put that revolver down. They ended up pulling their guns on and put the revolver down kind of thing, because 2 people had been shot. They were, like, right there really fast, so they probably heard the gunshots.
Yeah, they were probably, like, a block or 2 away.
Something like that. No, at first Wood was really compliant about everything, and he put the revolver on the ground, he put his hands up, he's like, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, I didn't do anything, like, nothing's going on, and then, like, in a split instant, his mind flipped, I guess, and he was just like, you know what, no, fuck this, and he reached down, picked up the revolver, pointed it at the officers, and the officers shot him. He didn't die. Obviously not, because that would be a very short episode.
3 minutes, let's go.
World record. So, the officers opened fire and shot him multiple times, but as officers tend to need to do in those situations, they've still gotta try and be non-lethal. So, he did end up surviving his wounds after multiple surgeries. A couple years later, on July 2nd of 1991, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection, plus 30 years in prison. He was convicted for 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 for Debbie and 1 for Eugene, and 2 counts of aggravated assault for pointing his revolver at the 2 officers that responded. The thing about this, a big portion of this is about the execution, and that's not something that I am ever going to take lightly. I don't want it to seem like I am taking the murders in this case lightly. It's just hard to find information on them.
Because it was just a very cut and dry kind of
but
thing.
The thing is there was a lot of family outcry on stuff. I would say justifiably so.
Yeah.
Because of just how he was acting, if that makes sense.
You're right, with the stalking and that kind of stuff. I think it was just a very cut and dry case for...
Plus the prior abuse.
The DA, they're like, okay, he was abusive, drunk,
the
got mad that
family was
left.
already done with this guy, and I totally understand them being like, fuck this guy. So, he chose not to have a last meal, so to speak.
Yeah, that was back when they were actually doing last meals.
So he just had the sausage and mashed potatoes that everybody else had. I don't know why that needed to be a detail, but it needed to be a detail.
I can't remember what state did it, but they stopped serving last meals and that you're just getting the meal of the day because this one dude made it to where he could only... Like, his execution would be prolonged so long because there was only, like, a certain time frame that you could get the certain, like, meal that he wanted. And, like, so they were like, you know what? Fuck this. You're getting this. Like, you don't have the right to this. Made it to where you only get what's on the menu.
I don't feel like you should go out of your way to give someone a special meal when they've already proven that they don't deserve to be on this planet anymore.
Yeah.
So, Wood's final
words. Get it in
words.
a blender. That's their final
I have
meal.
watched my father blend a steak. No.
Oh.
So Wood's final words were what really truly pissed the family off the most. I'm going to read this little section quote, or this little section word for word. I'm on Murderpedia on the page on this. It says, Wood looked at the victim's family as he delivered his final words, saying he was thankful for Jesus Christ as his savior. So over his time in jail, he got religious. At one point, he smiled at them, which angered the family, and his last words were quoted as, I take comfort knowing today that my pain stops, and I said a prayer that on this or any other day you may find peace in all of your hearts, and may God forgive you all.
Oh, I'd be pissed.
Understandably
your pain
so.
stops. Well, kind of.
The thing about this case, the thing about this episode that makes this case so insane is the execution, ultimately. A little bit of back history. So in 1977, that was when they started using thiopentothal as well as some other drugs for the lethal injection. But in 2010, there was a shortage of it, so some states were trying to swap it out for other things.
Wait, okay.
This execution happened in 2014.
Well, yeah, I suppose he had to do 30 years and then he was executed.
He didn't do a full 30 years.
Did he not? Okay, damn.
I don't believe so. No, he couldn't have done a full 30 years because he was brought in 91, and 30 years of that would have been 2021.
Okay. Well, yeah, you're just sitting on death row. It's kind of when they get to you.
Yeah, exactly. Because of this shortage of the thiopentothal, Arizona was like, well, we got to find something else. This all happened in Arizona. Really
Fuck
should have mentioned
Arizona.
that.
Sorry. Don't like Arizona. Nothing against the people except for one person.
That one person is probably never going to hear this podcast.
Oh, I fucking hope not.
So they swapped the medications that they were using for the executions. Originally it was like phenobarbital or thiopentol. Medication names are so fucking hard to say. So a lot of other states switched to midazolam. Sounds sexy and exotic. But a few others...
Madame.
Midazolam.
It's like a southerner trying to be like posh.
It's Southern Snoop Dogg talking to a lady. My dad's a lamb.
Well, you see over there now, my dad's lamb. Sorry.
Drop it like it's hot. So they switched to the midazolam, and a few other states had already switched to the midazolam, and we're kind of like, hey, like, this isn't quite as effective.
Probably in, like, higher quantities than what they were actually doing. It might have been, but it's chemicals. If you're off by just a little bit, it doesn't have the same effect.
After Woods said his last words, which, by the way, no apology, no nothing. He was just like, Jesus saved me. Woo! I hope you find Jesus,
I'm not going to
too.
be in pain. Woo.
I'm out of here, bitches. They were like, okay, are these your last words? He's like, yeah. That's it. So technically,
that's it.
technically, his last words were "yes, sir" to the warden. So at 1:54 p.m., they started the drug cocktail because it does kind of take time. Ideally, they try to have it happen within like 3 to 5 minutes. Everybody kind of really bad.
Different. The best way to describe how it's supposed to be is the same way that you would euthanize an animal.
Essentially, yes.
It is supposed to be the human equivalent.
Put you to sleep and then give you stuff that make your heart no thump thump.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't get why they don't just use a shit ton of potassium or something. Feed them like 50 bananas.
Firing squad.
Firing squad is actually in the
Do
course.
You know that there is
in
some
the course
states
of looking this up, I found out that supposedly execution by firing squad is the only form of execution with a 100% success rate.
Well, yeah, I would hope so.
There have been people that have just outright survived lethal injection.
I feel like at that point,
or had some sort of extreme.
I feel like
situation
if you
like
survive lethal injection,
technically you already died.
You did your time.
See,
like you're.
There have been I can't remember specifically the case, but there has been a situation where like an inmate had a heart attack, technically died, got shocked back, and he's like, "Hey, I shouldn't."
After a few minutes, and he was like,
"I
served my life
sentence anymore." Yeah.
Didn't he win?
I don't know. I didn't look that far into it, but. If we find anything on it, we'll make it an episode.
I think there's still a way that you could get, you can still be executed by, like, a duel kind of thing, or, like, a battle to the death or some shit like that. There's, like, one state.
It's probably in the South or something.
I think so. I don't know.
I'm sorry, South. I love you, except it's hot down there.
It's really fucking muggy.
I can't handle the heat. I'd rather be cold. I can always get more blankets. So, back to the execution. So, 1:54, he says, okay, yeah, those are my last words. The drugs were already flowing at that point. Because he was like, all right.
They start him pretty, like, early on.
They do. And a lot of this information that I'm getting is actually from a reporter's description that was there. Mm-hmm. Michael Kiefer.
They just let people fucking watch. It's kind of weird.
This was from Michael Kiefer. It was of azcentral.com. Mm-hmm. The execution started, and usually that kind of stuff's over kind of quick, like 10 minutes tops.
And that's like the whole process is over in 10 minutes tops kind of thing.
Yeah. Everything that he described was that, like, he closed his eyes, his face went slack. It was kind of like he was just falling asleep, aside from these, like, jerky breathing motions that he was making. 4 minutes into everything, doctor checked his pulse and said everything that it was confirmed that he was sedated, ultimately. Mm-hmm. So they have to make sure that they're fully sedated before they start the lethal portion. So 4 minutes in, they're like, okay, he's sedated, we're going to move on to the killing him part now. Mm-hmm. There were concerns over the mix in this particular execution. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, they used the midazolam, which was kind of like Valium, and hydromorphone as it. So the Valium would like put him to sleep. The hydromorphone would be the stuff that ends it all. Yeah. I'm just gonna come out with it. It took him 2 hours to die.
They just had it so weak that it just kind of probably fucked with his heart enough to where it was just like, ooh, this isn't beating right. And
Caitlin, I just want you to know, and you know it's intense because I didn't call you Kate. I called you Caitlin.
Bro, I think that's the first time I fucking heard you call me Caitlin, and I'm shooketh.
They gave this man 15 doses, and he took 2 hours to die.
But God didn't want you.
It took so long that an hour into the execution, his attorneys were trying to get them to stop the execution because they figured he's suffering because he was gasping for breath. It was described that his mouth would open and then close, and then open and then close, and then he'd make a jerky
at that
breathing
point,
motion.
it was not humane. Like,
there was an execution in Ohio the January prior to Wood's execution, so earlier in 2014, that because it took 20 minutes, it was deemed inhumane. 2
They waited so long. Yeah, no matter what you do, I don't feel like anyone should die a horrendous death, no matter who you are, because, like, again, you're still human. I always say, like, oh, you fuck the person, but
it was counted that he gasped 640 times.
Who the fuck was counting? I'm sorry, who the fuck was counting?
2 different reporters.
Oh, okay. But, like, when you have to wait hours for someone to die in a process that's supposed to take less than 10 minutes, then you know that there is something fucked with it, and that even though he may not be conscious, he can definitely fucking feel it, because those chemicals that go in,
maybe
they don't
he was
feel
having
fucking
an acid
good.
Trip of a dream. I mean, who knows?
Or
the whole thing was everything. It was insane. So the execution itself started at 1:54 p.m. At 1:57, they were like, okay, he's unconscious. At 2:05, he started gasping for air. At 3:49, he was finally declared dead after 640 gasps. And a lot of the people, so this is going to be a quick quote from the family. This was said by, I want to say it's Jeannie Brown, Debbie's sister.
Mm-hmm.
She said, quote, "Everybody here said it was excruciating. You don't know what excruciating is. Seeing your dad lying there in a pool of blood and your sister lying there in a pool of blood, that's excruciating." And her husband went on to say, and her husband had witnessed the murders, said, "What I've seen today, you guys are all blowing this out of proportion about these drugs. Why didn't we give him a bullet? Why didn't we give him some Drano? These people that are on death row deserve to suffer a little bit." So the family was all for this.
Yeah, they were like,
yeah, this wasn't even the half of it, bro. Like, he should have got so much worse. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, this case kind of made an appeals court judge be like, hey, we should just go back to firing squads. Like, they don't fail.
No. Or, like, get the fucking mixture right.
Well, the thing is when it comes to medication, that it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, gingers have to have more anesthetic because they don't work as well. You know that firsthand.
Yeah, Mom knows that firsthand. She actually had a procedure where she woke up, but she was still, like, out of it. She couldn't move, but she was conscious and
paralyzed but conscious
and could feel everything. Thankfully, it wasn't a heavily invasive procedure. It was she has banding in her neck or in her throat that basically moves blood to her liver, and she, like, woke up kind of during that.
Okay.
So it wasn't
pleasant.
It wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't, like, the worst thing. It wasn't like a surgery that she woke up during. But it's just kind of like,
real quick, while I have you on recording, I want to show you a picture of this guy. This is what he looked like before he died.
Well, I would hope so. It's before he died, because if it was after, he's kind of just boned right now.
This is what he looked like most immediately before he died.
Weird question.
Now you understand why I was having such a struggle finding a picture for this one, because I was trying to find a picture of a balding man being prepared for execution, and I got really well-defined AI butt cheeks.
Man. Okay.
Man.
Another weird question. Do they give funerals to people who get executed?
Like, does the prison system give them funerals?
Like, do they get funerals, or do they just? I'm assuming they just get fucking cremated.
I
and
would
put
imagine
into a fucking box. Like,
I would imagine that's potentially on a case by case kind of basis. I mean, if they've got family that have plans or anything
maybe
like
they
that,
just
release
a lot of the body
time,
to the family.
They might just do that. Most likely just releasing it to the family, or if the family says, no, I don't want it, then they probably either get cremated or
put them in a box, and then just, like, I don't know. I wish we had, like, a mortician friend. That'd be really cool.
But actually, Drew's sister was talking about going to mortuary school at some point.
Shit. But yeah, that's a weird thought. But also, it's kind of fucked that it took 2 hours, but you know what?
Honestly, I would imagine that after the first, like, hour of that,
he was probably brain dead by part of it.
Honestly, probably. That's what I'm wondering, because a lot of that movement, I mean, even after the gasping started, it could have all been brain dead autonomous, like, reaction sort of thing.
So who knows if he even fucking suffered. He probably was, like, consciously dead by the time he was knocked out.
Now, I'm going to say this, but I may or may not edit it out. I'm not a huge religious person, but with him having made his religious comments beforehand, do you think maybe, like, he went unconscious and he saw himself walking up the stairs to heaven, and that entire 2 hours was just him hitting his head all the way? No, no, not him going up, but him hitting his head the entire way down to hell. Because he thought he was going.
Or it was him reliving the whole fucking thing.
It's hard to say. I guess it depends on what you believe. So I hope you guys enjoyed the short case this week of the... they don't want it being called a botched execution because ultimately they did still kill him, but...
Very prolonged.
Excessively prolonged execution of
a
Joseph
little
Woods.
whoops.
Joseph Wood, not Joseph Woods.
A whoopsie, if you would.
Yeah, maybe we should try and be a little more effective about killing our death row people.
It's like at that point, just fucking... Alright.
Yeah.
There had to be something that they could have fucking done. Because obviously, like, hey, what we're giving them is obviously not working. There had to be other fucking shit, like you said. Just fucking put a whole bunch of potassium into them.
Just give them a whole bunch of bananas.
Hurts going in.
I don't know. I've never
So
had
does
a potassium
magnesium.
shot. I've never had any of those kinds of shots. I just know that potassium will stop your heart.
It won't show up in a drug screen. Anyway.
We're not going to talk about that. We will see you guys next week. I don't know what case we're doing next week yet, but we'll figure it out, and you'll see it on social media. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook or Instagram or both, whatever makes you happy. Yeah. And you'll get your little sneak peek to what episode's coming.
Yeah.
So we'll see you guys then.
Bye. Bye.